might be a leaver. You might be a believer. You might be both. You might be neither. Whoever you are, wherever you are, welcome to Leaving Hillsong. And if you're a first-timer, climb on board as we take a very special, magical mystery tour through this phenomenon that is Leaving Hillsong. Someone who is definitely not leaving Hillsong is Phil Dooley. Phil and Lucinda Dooley were made official, permanent, senior, global pastors of Hillsong today. At the beginning of last year, they moved to take over from the space that Brian and Bobby were leaving or about to leave or whatever. And today, they've been made permanent, and something for their LinkedIn profiles. It's great. Great for the resume. Not so great for the Houston resume, but since they're not prepared to give this Hillsong brand a decent Christian burial, let's see how this all goes, hey? Let's hear it for those last men standing. Now, central to the Hillsong thing that it is the Bible College. As soon as you get a religious institution, you need to get yourself an educational institution, and colleges are core to the tax-free benefits that necessarily accompany being a religious leader. Hillsong, of course, has had a very large and successful Bible college. However, there have been a few concerns. Some of those concerns have been raised from the early starts of complaints against them by a woman called Yolandi Bosch, who I've known for some years and who has made regular public statements about things that she saw and experienced during her time as a student. And then she found a response to an article that she had been in the other night. Where better to come? Straight to Leaving Hillsong. We have a bit of a chit and a chat about this and that before we look at the Hillsong response to the Business Insider article that came out at the end of 2020 by Rich McHugh. There's lots to be said about this college, so kick back, grab those snacks, and settle in for You're Going to Be Cleaning Floors, Part 1 with Yolandi. How's it, Yolandi?
Hello, how's it? How are you going?
How's it? Lekker by the sea?
Yeah, I wish I was by the sea.
So,
So
apparently you were cleaning up a bit of social media, going through old files and stuff last night. Is this correct? And you came across an old article. Jump in. Tell me what happened.
yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show today, Tanya. Appreciate it.
Always. Love you.
Love you too, my friend.
No, seriously, Yolandi, sorry, before we do move on, I should do better intros anyway. Look, once again, you've been putting your face forward and your name forward and your reputation forward to make a stand for your experiences with Hillsong and with Hillsong Bible College as a student. And I know you've been putting yourself out there again, as you have done. We've known each other many years now through this really strange unfolding of events. So, a better bit of an intro that, I've known you a long time as you kind of campaigned alongside me here and there doing your section. I'm just rambling now. But, thank you. Thank you for standing up and tell me what you found. Because, you're working, what are you working at the moment? 3 jobs, 2 jobs? How many jobs you got?
No, I'm just doing one job at the moment.
Well, you work so hard. Sometimes it's not like you're focusing on Hillsong a lot.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm not just focusing on Hillsong. I'm doing my full-time job on the side. But, I do my own full-time work for a company, and, it's
completely unrelated.
Completely unrelated to Hillsong, but I sometimes do just check up and see if there's any new news or if they've said anything that might be out of the ordinary. And my part of this is still to try and campaign for the college students, especially the new college students that are coming into college blindly. And there's a lot of issues that are constantly still coming out of that, that college. And even though so much media attention has been brought to the forefront, there still hasn't been much reform. There hasn't been much of an apology apology, which I don't
Yeah.
expect from Hillsong because they're never going to apologize. They're all about the victim shaming at this point. Even though
Yeah.
Bobby and Brian have left, I still haven't had anybody reach out to me and go, hey, look, maybe we could have done things better. And even the other students that I've spoken to, regardless of my case, because they might just completely dislike me, Hillsong as a whole. But speaking about other students, more reasonable students in their mind, maybe, right, who still have connections in there, haven't had a public apology or a kind of reform, any kind of initiation towards a reform. So it just shows
And
you.
I've got my opinions, and people have told me, why do you think that is? Because I've always wondered, wouldn't it have made life a whole lot easier for that brand if they'd extended a bit of compassion or, kindness, particularly to, say, Frank's victims or...
Yeah, exactly. So what's so difficult about saying, hey, look, stuff happened, regardless of where we went wrong, you went wrong. We could take that stance as well and say, let's just build a bridge, move on from it. We are sorry for our part that we've played. It's never happened. I've never seen a public apology from them towards victims
No.
of any sort. And that just shows to me that there's a sort of an arrogance and it's quite scary, actually, that this is continuing in this manner and that it's still not being addressed, even though there's been a leadership change or so-called overall, because it's really just the same people that are still running Hillsong, right? Robbie and Brian were the instigators of the culture. They led the whole church. They were the culture leaders, let's put it that way, but they still created a toxic environment with toxic individuals that were under Bobby and Brian, and those individuals are now essentially running the college. So it's not as if there's been a whole change of leadership and brand new beautiful people. It's just the same old people with the same old tricks.
I mean, I don't know if they're toxic individuals or it's a toxic culture.
Well, you have to be toxic to be a part of it. I mean, how can you not be toxic if you have been a part of something for 12 years? You're still taking part in the same church with the same kind of gaslighting, manipulation, you name it, and you're still staying a part of it. So you're a part of a problem. It's the same as what Martin Luther King said, if you stay a part of a system, like, for instance, this is a racial system, obviously, in the US, but just as an example, you stay a part of that system and then you're a part and you're contributing to that system and essentially okaying that system and saying, you know what, I'm not a racist, but I'm still not saying anything and I'm not speaking up. I'm just staying in the system. It's a bad system. And I'm by no means saying that everybody is bad at Hillsong, but there has to be some sort of, moral compass of saying, wow, Brian Houston did this, Carl Lenz did this. When am I going to step away from this as a leader or speak out against it?
Look,
But
and I mean, before we jump into this article that we just want to run over today, just tell me something, because you have spoken publicly for years. You've put your face out there, you've put your name out there, and yet people are so genuinely terrified to do the same thing. What's different about you?
I just don't fear people. I don't fear what Hillsong's going to do to me. I don't fear what Scott Morrison is going to do, because at the end of the day, I have to think about, is it about me or is it about the better of society and bettering society as a whole, right? If I'm bettering society as a whole and taking care of the people around me and the society around me, then it's up to me as a person with a duty of care to bring out the truth and to speak the truth and to prevent this from happening again in the future to future students. If I keep quiet, then I'm just enabling. Again, I'm just a part of that system that's enabling the abuse, that's enabling the continuous destruction of people going through that system.
As you know, people are very, very real in their fears about speaking.
Yeah, but what are you fearing? You're fearing, at the end of the day, that you don't have friends, the friends of the community group. You're not being accepted by Hillsong anymore. You maybe have a loss of job within Hillsong. There's a job shortage in Australia. There's, if you lose your job at Hillsong, you will get another job. I mean, it's all irrational. It's fears that I understand. It's based on real things that will happen and real consequences that go with that fear, which is understandable. But you have to ask yourself, are you going to stay in a position or in a place where it's okay to be how can I put this? It's okay to be in, continue in that system, just stay quiet, just so that you've got the comforts of the world, or is it better to just know that you're right, in a right standing, morally and ethically? And a lot of people just don't get that, and a lot of people don't want to give up their comfort. They'd rather just be comfortable in their. Most people want to just be comfortable in their world with the friends they have, and they don't want to disrupt their world, because disrupting your world is painful, and I understand that.
It's just that the more time I spend, I can see the effects of the grooming and the hypnosis and all of those things that take place. Yeah, I just don't know how you've kind of derailed that and gotten over that, and what people might be.
I think the main thing is, at least I did have a kind of a support group outside of Hillsong Church when I was there, and that's why I started going to other churches where people validated who I was as a person, and they would say, we know who you are, this isn't the way the church should be, this isn't the way that you are, that sounds wrong. I had friends that were on the outside standing in, and they were in that situation with me, and they were being vilified by Hillsong. General people, they were being asked not to come back to Hillsong and all of that stuff. Really nice people. And I started realizing, okay, these people are very toxic. So that was helpful to me to build a support network outside that gave me a bit of balanced perspective. But I think the way that I've handled it as well is that I've had to place myself outside of what I've lost, because I did lose a lot of friends at a point, and I said, okay, is it worth losing all these friends, this comfort, whatever else, and speaking out, or is it better to just stay quiet, go on with my life, and forget that it's happened? And I decided to do the opposite, and it hasn't been easy, and it's cost me jobs where people have gone, well, you're a whistleblower, we can't hire you, but that's okay, because then you just go to a place that does accept you, and you start realizing it's actually pretty beneficial, because you don't want to be in a company or work for a company that has the similar values to what Hillsong is, where they try and silence whistleblowers. So there's a lot of positives. I hope that answers the question, but there's a lot of positives, and there's a lot of negatives.
How long have you been at this for? 2014 or so? When did you start talking?
When did I start speaking? It was 2015. No, 2016. Yeah. No. It was actually the first time I spoke out was 2020. It was 2020. That was the Business Insider came out. Yes, because you and I met with Rich McGee before that, probably 2015, but it was never published. It was only published in 2020. I just went silent about it, and then we waited for it to be published and to come out.
And so you would have seen the original article in Business Insider, and then what, last night you found the response from Hillsong? Is that where we are?
Yeah, so before Rich published his article on Business Insider, he had a lawyer go through some questions with Hillsong. It was a closed consultation, I guess, between Business Insider's lawyers and Hillsong's lawyers, and he confidentially sent them an email and asked them if they could just answer a few of his questions regarding a response of the allegations that he was about to publish in Business Insider. And what Hillsong essentially did was, and this is what I found last night, and it made me so mad, because I just couldn't understand how, they could do this from a, student college perspective. And it was really, I think, just rooted in basically just the way they are, in a bullying manner. So what they did was they just basically smashed that whole response of what Business Insider was essentially their lawyers were sending to Hillsong's lawyers, and they smashed that whole thing onto their newsroom. And there's questions on Hillsong colleges on their news section about allegations, and then
this is gorgeous, because it's like when a college puts out a response to abuse claims, I mean, it's already like a screaming red flag that it's that bad. You know what I mean? That they actually have to put out an official statement going, no, we're not abusive. This is dated the 19th of December 2020, and what you just came across last.
I was actually doing I'm just updating my own records of what kind of old social media I have and stuff like that, and I was also just online scrolling last night, and I came across this, and I looked at it. I'm like, wow, okay, this is crazy. Like, what am I reading here? Like, just the fact that they said that number one is there's a blatant
Hang on.
lie within that.
Well,
Okay, go on. Sorry.
let's have, no,
Interrupting you.
no, but like, give it the time that it deserves. All right, so responses from Hillsong College. This is fantastic. Does Hillsong require its students to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and if so, why? It says our students are asked to sign a standard non-disclosure agreement when they enroll. It's a prerequisite, blah, blah, blah. It's a registered training organisation and a government body, so ASCA will audit the college procedures and training requirements. On and on we go. In Australia, we are considered an Australian privacy principles entity. So there's no actual decent explanation as to why students at a college need to sign an NDA that then, from what I've seen,
it's just the same stuff. It's literally just the same stuff that they repeat within their video. I've got a video that they've got on their college portal where they also discuss this again, and where they blatantly say that family members are not allowed to understand, to listen to any of their recordings and or see any of the course material, which is to me is still a big red flag. They kind of like circumnavigate it. They go, oh, I'm not going to really answer this question because we've given you this answer. It's to protect Hillsong property, which isn't good enough answer. It's called a spin tail, what they call it in politics, where you start off with, you just circumnavigate the actual question. So they're just spin tailing it.
Yeah. Former students say these NDAs are evidence that Hillsong is trying to silence them, and then they say, our NDA is a clear way for us to communicate the expectation that we meet privacy regulations, blah, 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 students, blah, blah, high expectation. Anyway, I don't know of other colleges that require
I've never had
that.
I mean, I've been doing TAFE courses. I've done an interior design course. I've never in my life had that. Like, they don't keep a record on any of those things. And I think they actually mentioned it. If you go down into that section that I sent to you, there is something that I read. I'm not exactly sure where it's at now, but it talks about them having more, getting more extensive information on students. But I mean, it's just, why do you need so much info? I've never been to a university. I mean, you've gone to university, am I correct? Or to a college? Yeah. And did they require that much information from you?
I mean, I've never seen anything like it, but I'm also not involved in theological institutions or ASIO or...
But I mean, regardless if it's theological or if it's not, if it's any kind of organization that you are joining, why do they need that kind of extensive information? Like, for instance, who you dated, what type of sex life you had before. I can understand, yes, do you have a prior conviction of, sex abuse to children or something like that? That's highly important to know if you're dealing with kids.
Well, not really for them, is it? Yeah.
But I mean, if they could ask that question, did you have, like, are you a pedophile? Perfectly fine to me. That's okay. But there's a reasonable questioning, but then there's unreasonable questioning into who did you date the last 5 years? What are their addresses? What are their names? Where, they fit into your life? When last did you speak to them? I'm just saying, for example,
really?
Because they could ask you those kinds of questions if they wanted to. And I know some students have had that. And, one specific student that I know of had a situation where she was talking about her own sexual abuse to Susan Smith, to this person that was the college psychologist, and somebody over a cup of coffee said to her, oh, how are you dealing with your dad's sexual abuse? And she was like, I've never spoken to anybody else about this except to this lady. And I mean, this is the kind of example of how flippant they are with people's information and how much information they're gathering, which is just not normal for any kind of college. I don't care if it's a Bible college or a design college. It just shouldn't be happening.
That client confidentiality, I mean, she should have her registration reviewed for that kind of stuff.
But she should, but it's happened so many times. And I mean, how many students have spoken and mentioned her name, but it keeps going on, it's like...
keeps coming up. It's ironic that they want you to, zip your lip, keep completely silent about them, and they can't even keep the basic professional guidelines of confidentiality.
Exactly. I mean, the only time when I think a psychologist should be open to discuss another student or another person is if somebody's life is in danger.
Yeah. Everybody
mean,
knows that. Yep.
I mean, that's
Yep.
just a general practice, but even then, a court should decide on that. It shouldn't be the
Well,
college that decides on that.
in my social work training, so security overrides confidentiality. So if you've just told me in confidence that you're going to go and kill someone, that's different.
But I mean,
Yeah.
what about my situation where I went to them? I said, there is a woman that has come to me. She said she's in a DV situation, and this DV situation is extremely bad, and she needs help. And they go, shut up, we don't want the PR,
Was
and
it,
they take me
sorry,
off
was
the
it
team.
that wasn't even a church member, that was a community member you were
That was a
assisting?
community member. I mean, my role as now I was very young and impressionable back then. It's a very different situation now. I'm close to becoming an Australian citizen here. But the
Yeah.
difference between my life now and then is because I didn't know the rules of Australia. But even as a general rule, you should just be going, I'm going to the cops because
When are you
something is
becoming
wrong.
a citizen?
Soon, probably. I'm just lazy. I should have been one already, but
No, I want to go to the ceremony. All right. The next one says, I mean, this is incredible. This list of complaints that they are answering
they're
badly.
just going it's terrible answers to very strong allegations against them.
Students say they felt threatened their immigration status or visa would be revoked if they didn't sign the NDA. And, when they had 90% of their student body being from other countries, that's a really major issue. It's an interesting one because it's actually a domestic violence technique sometimes for people who are awaiting visas, and it's a technique that can be used in domestic violence. If you don't do what I want, I'll have your visa cancelled.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a domestic violence, it's an abuse situation. I mean, that it is it's a very dangerous, way to misuse and abuse people is to use and leverage, basically blackmail them.
And there's a lot writing. I mean, someone like you who'd saved up and worked for a couple of years before coming
My
here.
entire life, because I've saved up, and I come from South Africa at that point. South Africa, living in South Africa is very different from Australia. It's 10 times more expensive coming to Australia. You give up everything that your course that you did. You give up your entire lifestyle, everything that you've built up in South Africa to start anew in Australia, and then you're just told, look, we're not going to refund you any of the funds that you paid. We're not going to help you at all. We're just going to cancel your visa. And it's really scary because all your dreams, hopes, and everything just crushes. It's a very, very dangerous thing that they're doing to students. And I'm not just talking about myself, my own circumstances, but other students who ended up, going back and eventually they're giving up on their dreams, committing suicide, whatever else, might be the extreme.
Hang on. That you're aware of suicides.
I am aware of suicides. I'm also aware of my own friend group, of people in my own friend group that became disillusioned with the church, became disillusioned with filling that dream and it just never working out for them and then ending their lives. But I mean, it's just, there's people that are on the brink of suicide. There are people that have committed suicide. There are people that just go home and they just feel empty, and the mental health repercussions are so great after leaving that place. And it's not just me. There's hundreds of people.
These are really tangible concerns.
The other thing I just wanted to check, their response on the immigration issue is interesting for me because it wasn't really answered.
Well, I mean, I don't. It just says something about confidentiality, and we welcome feedback if any of the language used causes misunderstandings. What misunderstanding?
You see, I mean, the first thing is they told me that they don't really want to cancel the visa, because if it does get cancelled, I think it does go through external review through the government, and then the government has to sit down with them. That's what I believe. That's what I spoke when I spoke with the government at that point, because I knew that they were going to kick me out. And they said to me they have the right to cancel it within 24 hours, but then you can ask for an external review through the government, and then I think then they come through the whole situation and then basically investigate the situation. And I don't think they want that. So what they did in my case is they said, oh, no, don't cancel your visa, just withdraw, and then just willingly withdraw. But you do have the chance of cancelling it as well, but then it's cancelled within 24 hours. And obviously they know that you won't take the 24-hour, who's going to take the 24-hour thing? And then in case the government decides not to give an internal investigation into your, or the, immigration department decides not to give you a internal investigation, then you have to take the withdrawal side. So then you've got 2 weeks, 14 days to enroll and pay for a new course. I had no money at that point. I had to, because I'd already paid for Hillsong. So they said, oh, join our sister campus. Maybe you could correct things and then you could come back for second semester at Hillsong. They knew that that wasn't going to happen, but that was a lie that they were spinning. So I ended up joining up for cruises, which is better for me because it was only a 2-day course a week. So that opened up a lot more freedom for me. But I essentially had to get all the money, repay the full semester's amount, and then get a new place to stay as well, which cost me thousands of dollars.
Oh, and how did you do it?
So I was working, at least at that point. I was doing extra work, so I was working, and the other thing is my mum paid. She gave me a lot of money to help me through this time, so she had to help me, because I was essentially already had paid. Everything had worked the previous year. But yeah, I mean, that just goes to show you the immigration issue it's confidential to them, but they're obviously doing something really sinister in that regard, in my opinion, because they're essentially giving you this, choose between either or. Imagine you're in that situation and you're from Africa or somewhere.
Right. I mean, I'm also thinking about Americans who have come from very religious families, and if they have to leave Bible college, they will get
it's terrible. Like, I've seen some of them. They were getting like some of my friends, like I had a friend that's still a friend of mine today, and we're really good friends. When she can't stand them at this point, but she says this to me. Like, she said she just went along with it, and she was also just in a kind of a bubble with them. But she came from a family where she got her grandparents to pay for her, and they didn't really believe in God, and they were like, we didn't want to send you, so what is she going to tell them? Oh, look what's happened. And they're just going to go, we told you so. So she just stayed. She just had to stay, but she was constantly in their office, constantly as a problem, because she wasn't conforming to their views. But she ended up just leaving after the first year and going, okay, I can't do this anymore.
I mean, it's not the same as any regular fine arts degree or teachers' college or something. I mean, people have so many hopes and dreams put into this. Let me just have a look at, all right, let's move on to, I just think it's such a funny letter. Like, what kind of a college has to argue when they say they've been accused of there is systemic abuse at Hillsong College as it relates to forced volunteer work? And they say many colleges and schools encourage or even require community service in order to invest in their students' development. Then they bring in the old registered training organisation. Practical work and experience is an essential part of blah, blah, blah.
But practical work is not cleaning toilets. Okay.
Well,
practical, I mean, unless you want to start a cleaning business, right?
There are, field assignments, things like that. This is
Fair
so
enough.
broad. It's just so broad.
And I think it's really important to put this out to your listeners out there as well. And I think the important thing to note as well is that Hillsong is using this as, if you're going to study worship, you should be in a worship stream doing practical work in worship. That's it. Right? If I'm doing a design course, graphic design, I should be shadowing somebody that's doing graphics. I should be shadowing somebody that is working in that kind of industry, in the graphics industry. I shouldn't be cleaning their floors. Okay, that's not a part of the deal, unless I'm an intern where that's stated you are going to be cleaning floors.